Tonight, $2 trillion more.
Debate is welcome. Compromise is inevitable.
The president meets with Republicans and Democrats on infrastructure. And
they will also be looking at the court's role in the constitutional system.
The White House Commission on reforming the Supreme Court, setting off a firestorm over court packing.
Plus, a deadly police shooting after a traffic stop in Minnesota revives protests.
And
this problem will continue to get worse because of the policies that have been adopted by the Biden administration.
Pay to stay away, the new White House plan to send money to Central American countries. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Infrastructure or bust. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Jenna Browder. The White House moving full steam ahead on President Biden's massive infrastructure plan. But he's signaling some openness to compromise.
And apparently so are Republicans, some who say they're open to supporting a smaller bill. Senior Washington correspondent Tara Merchiner is here now. Tara, I guess the big question of the day is, can they strike a deal?
It sure is, John and Jenna. It is too early to tell if they can, in fact, get a deal done. Biden is meeting with senators from both parties this week, also touting the plan during a virtual CEO summit with Google, AT&T, GM, and others on the global semiconductor shortage.
China and the rest of the world is not waiting, and there's no reason why Americans should wait. We're investing aggressively in areas like semiconductors and batteries. That's what they're doing and others. So must we.
Biden's massive spending plan will cost $2.3 trillion. Some Republicans are indicating possible room for compromise, possibly for a plan up to $1 trillion. The proposal calls for $240 billion to fix the nation's roads, rails, airports, and bridges, among several other measures. Still, some GOP critics say the plan is a job killer. Even if the plan does move forward, it could mean internal squabbling between moderate Democrats and the Progressive Caucus, which has laid out its ambitious priorities. Like the COVID-19 relief bill, GOP critics charge the bill is too broad, to which Biden said this to the press this afternoon.
A lot of folks saying that the fact that we have millions of people not able to drink water because there's lead and it's coming through lead pipes, I think that's infrastructure. I think broadband is infrastructure. It's not just roads, bridges, highways, etc.
President Biden says he hopes to make significant progress on his infrastructure plan by Memorial Day. He'd like it passed by this summer. John and Jenna.
All right, Tara Merchiner, thank you very much. And here now for more, CBN News Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, we heard Tara's report there. The president says he's welcome to debate and is open to compromise. Do you think he means it?
So let me give you a short answer and then a little bit of a longer answer. I think the short answer is yes with an asterisk. And the reason I say yes is because he would love to get a couple of senators, a couple of U.S. House members, even if it's just one or two. And then, of course, the Democrats will call it bipartisanship. So I think the answer is yes in that sense. But the asterisk part of it is the no part. In other words, if Democrats are clearly ready to go this alone, if they have to. So basically where Republicans find themselves here is a way to tinker it, way to make it different, way to change it a little bit here and there. That's all they're going to be able to do. And then if it's acceptable to the White House and Senate and House leadership from a Democrat standpoint, then it'll get in the bill. Otherwise, it's just going to go through with Democrat votes because ultimately this is where it's going, a budget reconciliation situation again.
So, David, not your usual suspects here at the White House meeting. Yes, a bipartisan mix, but no big names. And somebody notably left off the list is Senator Joe Manchin, who's often seen as a linchpin. What do you make of this?
Well, let's remember about Manchin, first of all, right? He wants that corporate tax rate not as high as 28%. That's what Biden wants in this package. He wants it at 25%. So they kind of know where he stands. Look, I think for Manchin to be there, I'm not sure of the reason he needs to be there right now because he's not necessarily the person. He's going to be someone down the road that they're going to have to deal with kind of individually, unilaterally. But if you look at Senator Roger Wicker, Republican from Mississippi, who's the head of the Senate Commerce Committee on the Republican side, they're going to need people like him and his staff who write the bill. or have a portion of writing the bill. And so the Biden administration is taking a bit of a different tactic, bringing in committee members, kind of, I don't want to say lower level House members and staff, but that's kind of the way they see it, rather than the usual cast of characters like Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, and the like. They tried that. They didn't get anywhere the first time, so they're going to try something different.
Yeah. David, the White House says there are more meetings to come, but the administration also wants this infrastructure plan done by summer. How do you see that happening?
I think that the Biden administration runs a pretty tight ship. And I think that Schumer and the Biden administration and others know that you got to get a lot done quickly in Washington. And so I think that Memorial Day deadline seems about right. Maybe they push it to July 4th and, something along those lines. But I think early summer for sure is when you'll probably see a bill. And look, John, let me be clear about this and date stamp this live shot on April 12th, 2021. This bill's getting done. It's just a matter of what it's going to look like and when it's going to pass. But it'll get done. Why? Because the Senate parliamentarians decided that budget reconciliation is going to be okay with this infrastructure bill. I keep calling it infrastructure bill, but let's be honest. It's a bit more than infrastructure for sure.
All right. CBN's David Brody. We're going to have to leave it there. Thanks, David.
Thank you, David.
You bet.
Meanwhile, conservatives are blasting President Biden's new commission to study overhauling the U.S. Supreme Court. The bipartisan group announced Friday will spend the next 6 months examining the structure of the High Court.
They will also be looking at the court's role in the constitutional system, the length of service and turnover of justices on the court, the membership and size of the court.
And that last point about the size of the court is a hot-button political issue. Many Republicans accuse liberals of wanting court packing, adding more liberal justices to the court so they can get the rulings they want. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell calls the commission, quote, a direct assault on our nation's independent judiciary and another sign of the far left's influence over the Biden administration. McConnell adding that constitutional scholars and Supreme Court justices have repeatedly said 9 is a good number for the court. Just last week, Justice Stephen Breyer warned against the idea, and as a senator himself, Biden once called court packing, quote, boneheaded. An October poll from the New York Times and Siena College found that 58% of Americans oppose increasing the size of the court, while only 31% support it.
And joining us now, John Malcolm, Vice President for the Institute for Constitutional Government at the Heritage Foundation. John, thanks for being with us. This is creating a real firestorm, especially among conservatives. John, is there any precedent examining this issue of expanding the Supreme Court like this?
Well, there's precedent for attempting to expand the Supreme Court like this. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was frustrated when the Supreme Court struck down parts of his New Deal legislation early on. So he proposed a court packing plan to increase the number of Supreme Court justices from 9 to 15. At that time, the Democrats controlled substantial majorities in both houses of Congress, and they absolutely refused to do it and said that this was a terrible idea that would erode confidence in the court and was a direct attack on the independence of the judiciary by the other two political branches of government. He eventually, over 4 terms, ended up being able to appoint 8 out of the 9 Supreme Court justices. But at the time, an overwhelmingly Democratic Congress saw this for exactly what it was, which was an attack on the independence of the judiciary. And that's what this commission is all about, too.
John, I'm curious what you think of the commission. The administration says it's bipartisan. Do you agree?
Well, there are 36 members on the commission. They're all very bright people, but you could count the number of conservatives on one hand and probably have fingers to spare. Look, the Supreme Court, with the exception of 5 years in the immediate aftermath of the Civil War, has been at 9 since 1837. You just pointed out that Justice Breyer last week said that 9 was a good number and that the court packing was a bad idea. Shortly before she passed away, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg said exactly the same thing. This is a very dangerous attempt to attack the legitimacy of the court, and really probably an attempt to try to get them to, curb their opinions in a way that is more pleasing to the political left.
John, as you just mentioned, Justices Ginsburg and Justice Breyer last week warned of this idea of court packing. Is there any chance this commission actually recommends expanding the size of the court? And moreover, do you actually see that happening?
So yes, there's a chance that they could do that. There are many things that they could propose. They could propose term limits, for instance, for Supreme Court justices. That would require a constitutional amendment. But increasing the number of Supreme Court justices would not require a constitutional amendment. It just could be done by legislation. So if there clearly would be support for this in the democratically controlled House. If all 50 Democrats were in favor of this and they were to eliminate the legislative filibuster, they could pass a bill. Vice President Kamala Harris, the president of the Senate, could be around to break a tie, and they could, by simple legislation, increase the number of Supreme Court justices. I don't think that will happen, but it's a bigger threat than many people realize.
Yeah, a lot hinging on that Senate filibuster rule. John Malcolm with the Heritage Foundation, thank you so much. It's good to see you.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.
Thanks, John. Coming up, protests erupt in the streets after a police shooting in Minnesota as the murder trial over the death of George Floyd continues.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Well, welcome back. Tonight, a case of pulling the wrong weapon. We're learning that the Minnesota police officer who shot and killed a black man in a traffic stop apparently meant to use a taser, not a gun. Police tried to arrest him after they discovered he had an outstanding warrant during a stop in the city of Brooklyn Center. An officer fired and hit him as he got back into the car and sped off. The car kept going and crashed into another vehicle several blocks away. Relatives identify the driver as 20-year-old Dante Wright. His death sparked protests into the early morning hours. Demonstrators out shortly after the shooting. Some jumped on police cars and confronted officers. All of that against a city already on edge from the trial of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin in the death of George Floyd last May.
And in that trial today, George Floyd's brother took the witness stand. Philonise Floyd is the first family member to testify. The prosecution asked him about a childhood photo of his mother and brother.
That's my oldest brother, George. I miss both of them. I was married. In May 24th, I got married. And my brother was killed May 25th.
And the emotional testimony came after another prosecution witness today, a cardiologist who believes Floyd would still be alive if he had not been restrained under Chauvin's knee.
Well, call it pay to stay away. The Biden administration reportedly is considering a plan to send money to Central American countries to help address the economic problems that are leading so many to head to the United States.
This coming as the number of migrants at the border hits new record highs. Here's CBN's Dale Hurd.
The situation is so bad at the southern border that the Department of Health and Human Services has asked workers from other federal agencies to go to the border to help care for the thousands of illegal immigrant children being held there. The border surge is breaking records. Over 172,000 migrants were stopped at the border last month, the most in 20 years. And almost 21,000 unaccompanied minors are now in federal custody, the most ever. Texas Governor Greg Abbott says we're seeing the consequences of the Democrats' rhetoric on open borders and Joe Biden's policies.
If you go back to the Democrat presidential debates, every single one of the Democrat candidates said if they are elected, they will have open borders and they will be giving things for free to anybody coming across the border. This problem will continue to get worse because of the policies that have been adopted by the Biden administration.
Abbott points out that even some Democrats are pushing back against the Biden White House. And he says what would stop the surge would be a return to the border policies of the Trump administration. Instead, Reuters reports the Biden administration is now considering cash payouts to some Central American nations to try to improve economic conditions to help stem the surge at the border. Republican House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy blasted the idea, tweeting, "President Biden wants to try and buy our way out of his border crisis with taxpayer money. The administration is spending $60 million a week and now wants to launch a cash transfer program in Central America. This insults millions of Americans who are out of work in our country." And while Joe Biden put Kamala Harris in charge of fixing the border crisis nearly 3 weeks ago, she still hasn't held a press conference or even visited the border to see what's happening there firsthand. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Up next, 100,000 rockets pointed at Israel by Hezbollah. What happens if they launch? The answer after this.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
And ministering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to cbnnewschannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Tonight, Iran is vowing revenge, accusing Israel of nuclear terrorism after a blackout at one of the rogue nation's key nuclear facilities. According to the New York Times, the power outage at the Natanz nuclear facility Sunday set back Iran's nuclear program at least 9 months. Israeli media is reporting that Mossad is behind a cyber attack that damaged advanced centrifuges just hours after they went online. Iran is blaming Israel for the incident, though, and a leading Iranian official is warning of war.
Well, the biggest war yet between Israel and Hezbollah. That threat looms larger than ever right now in the Middle East.
And guess who might trigger it? CBN's Chris Mitchell reports from Israel's northern border on this very clear and present danger.
The border here between Israel and Lebanon is deceptively quiet. But on the other side of this fence lies Hezbollah with more than 100,000 rockets that can hit almost anywhere inside Israel.
All of them were brought to Lebanon in order to be launched against Israel one day.
Retired Lieutenant Colonel Sarit Zahavi studies the danger of Hezbollah through her research organization, Alma.
Hezbollah is the proxy of Iran in the region. It's the most professional proxy of Iran in the region. It's the most equipped, dangerous proxy of Iran in the region. And we are here standing, looking in the eyes of Hezbollah. And the people that are raising their kids just a few feet from us, every morning looking in the eyes of Hezbollah.
I'm standing in the village of Hanita here on the Israeli-Lebanese border. Behind me, you can see children playing in this kindergarten. And over here, you can see how close the Lebanese border is. The sense of danger is real and ever present for those living here. In 2006, they lived through a 34-day war, which saw Hezbollah fire nearly 4,000 rockets into Israel. That barrage paralyzed northern Israel, chasing 1 million Israelis to the south, while the rest spent most of that month in bomb shelters. In 2021, the IDF believes Hezbollah is once again considering attacking Israel in what Zahavi describes as days of battle.
Days of battle would mean that the people that are living just here, a few feet from us, would not be able to get out of their home because it will be too dangerous. Meaning that their children will hear the sirens every 2 weeks and will have to run for shelter. This is a reality that is unbearable for the people of the north.
This is the only active border crossing between Israel and Lebanon. The UN base is just down the road within a no man's land, and I'm standing in an IDF base that keeps constant watch over Hezbollah.
Their threat is no joke, and we never underestimate our enemy, but we keep training, we keep practicing, we keep on gathering intelligence and always getting prepared and keeping readiness for the next conflict, for the next fight, making sure we have the upper hand.
Lieutenant Dalton describes Hezbollah's military strategy as one of blending in by creating a virtual civilian camouflage.
Hezbollah decided to take the step and make all of its establishments in southern Lebanon based on civilian clothing, civilian territory, civilian houses, really blend itself, camouflage itself into the population and keep operating in. So they know to hide, whether it's taking over civilian villages or households and really setting base up over there. But our intelligence is strong enough to understand their work and how they operate and to really pinpoint the location of their bases inside civilian territory.
Another hidden weapon in Hezbollah's arsenal is these underground tunnels along the border. CBN News got a rare look into this one that took years to build. Measuring at least 25 stories deep, it had already crossed into Israeli territory before the IDF uncovered and sealed it. Zahavi's organization identified another weapon by exposing Hezbollah assembling precision-guided missiles inside Beirut.
What most Americans, most Christians in the United States, North America, and around the world don't realize is that Lebanon is important to Iran because it is the forward operating base of their most aggressive offensive attack whenever they decide to attack Israel.
Middle East expert and author of the Beirut Protocol, Joel Rosenberg warns what might happen as the Biden administration considers re-entering the Iranian nuclear deal.
If Israel feared that the Biden administration was going to go down some road of negotiations that was short-sighted, ill-conceived, and dangerous, Israel might have to attack to neutralize those sites.
That could trigger Hezbollah.
Iran would unleash a barrage, the most devastating missile attack maybe in the history of mankind. They have upwards of, I hear, 150,000 missiles positioned right across that border, all through southern Lebanon. And they would light up the skies, and all the Israel defenses, all the missile defenses we have, would do some good, but it couldn't possibly stop a barrage of thousands and thousands and thousands of missiles coming in every day.
Israel's leaders realize those dangers. Some believe the IDF's goal would be to make its next response so massive that the next war with Hezbollah would be known as the last. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, on the Israeli-Lebanese border.
Thank you, Chris. Coming up, the royal family prepares for the memorial service of Prince Philip, the Queen's husband of 70 years. Next.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Finally tonight, a royal farewell as the UK mourns the death of Prince Philip, who passed away at the age of 99 on Friday.
A small crowd will gather for a memorial service on Saturday at Canterbury Cathedral per pandemic protocols. Prince Charles, the Queen, and Philip's oldest child, says the family appreciates all the support.
My dear Papa was a very special person who, I think above all else, would have been amazed by the reaction and the touching things that have been said about him.
Prince Philip wanted a small service and even helped design the Land Rover that will carry his coffin from the chapel to Windsor Castle. His insignia will be displayed at the service and will include his Royal Air Force wings and Field Marshal's baton. As her husband, Prince Philip stood by the Queen's side for more than 70 years. And one of the things that I heard this past weekend was that he was kind of like the grandfather to the nation.
Yeah, it's an incredible story of service, and I think it was something like 74 years
Wow.
for life.
Thanks for watching. Have a good night.